Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. Our first item is a presentation, and this involves the 2011 Environmental Achievement Award recipients. We have introductory comments by our Environmental Services Manager. I'd like to invite her to come forward at this time.
Thank you. Tonight we're recognizing the achievements of our environmental volunteers and honoring the recipients of the 2011 Environmental Achievement Awards. The Environmental Achievement Awards are an opportunity for the City of Coquitlam to recognize volunteers who have demonstrated an outstanding commitment to promoting, preserving, and enhancing Coquitlam's natural environment. The recipients of these awards excel in the areas of conservation, public awareness, environmental education, habitat enhancement, and sustainable living. There are 4 categories of the awards, including youth individual, youth group, adult individual, and adult group. The award recipients were officially announced and honored on June 12th during Environment Week at Coquitlam's 8th Annual Environmental Achievement Awards. We would now like to publicly recognize our winners, and we'll have Mayor Stewart announce their names and ask the winners to please stand when their names are announced. Thank you.
And how come that page is blank? We're going to take a 2-minute break here while...
You don't have them memorized?
No, I didn't memorize them. We're all trying to manage expectations of the mayor. Okay. Thank you very much. The first winner is Miranda Anderson in the Youth Individual category. There you are. Miranda has demonstrated a passion for conservation in many areas. She's particularly passionate about saving our oceans. She works as a salmon hatchery volunteer and has also produced several award-winning films that focus on conservation. She's been able to make others aware of environmental issues, including preserving coral, enhancing salmon, reducing our use of plastics, and recycling electronic waste in an ethical manner. Congratulations, Miranda. The next winner is the Afero Vita Sustainability Future Society in the youth group category. I think are they here? No. The society consists of 4 local youth: Ricky Wu, Daniel Kwan, Brian Ferry, and Armand Rahim. After graduating in 2010, they won a competition which gave them funds to pursue a community garden at their school. The students built a garden outside the school on land which was overrun with invasive plants. The beautiful garden now grows food for the New Westminster Soup Kitchen and also serves as a habitat for birds and insects. So congratulations to the Afero Vita Sustainability Future Society. We had a tie in the youth group category, and we have a second winner. The second winner is the Young Naturalists Club of Burke Mountain Naturalists. And they'll stand up. There they are. The Young Naturalist Club was formed in 2004, and it's a group of keen young people aged 5 to 14 who volunteer and explore nature with the help of volunteer leaders. They have learned about invasive plants while participating in a Japanese knotweed removal work party at the Deboval Slough. They've also cleaned out flying squirrel nesting boxes at Minnetonka Park and participated in the Great Canadian Shoreline Cleanup. They understand that taking care of the environment requires commitment and knowledge. Congratulations to the Young Naturalist Club. In the adult individual category, we'd like to congratulate Ian MacArthur. Ian MacArthur is an environmental leader in our community. He is currently president of the Burke Mountain Naturalists and the driving force behind Coquitlam River Watch. Ian co-leads the Burke Mountain Naturalists hiking group and is always busy organizing trail maintenance, nest box cleaning, and work parties such as tree planting. Ian can frequently be found spreading environmental awareness at public events where children love his working model of the Coquitlam River watershed. His work with the Burke Mountain Naturalists, creating and maintaining trails on Burke Mountain, was instrumental in the creation and preservation of Pinecone Burke Mountain Provincial Park. Congratulations, Ian. And the last winner is the Colony Farm Park Association in the adult group category. Yes, please, stand up. The Colony Farm Park Association was formed in 1996 and is a volunteer group that acts as stewards of Colony Farm Regional Park here in Coquitlam and also in Port Coquitlam. The Colony Farm Park Association has worked hard to preserve the rare oldfield grasslands which provide habitat for great blue herons and other birds. The group also hosts a variety of family nature walks to show people the wildlife values of Colony Farm. Congratulations to the Colony Farm Park Association. But I do want to wind up with the congratulations to, as we recognize all of the nominees who also show tremendous initiative and leadership while volunteering for projects that have long-term ecological benefits for our community. Please stand as your names are read if you're here. Thank you to the Coquitlam River Watershed Strategy Volunteer Planning Committee. There's some of them. There we go. The Footprints Conservation Society. The Tri-City Green Council. And you'll note that many of these people participate in several organizations, and that's wonderful. John and Muriel Lagan. Oh, we'll do that anyway. Sandy Lemonnier. Actually, also not attending is Shane Peachman. And Peter Spira. So on behalf of Council and the City of Coquitlam, I'd like to again congratulate you and thank you for your commitment and contributions to our community. Thank you all. Before we move on to the next item, could the box in the back stop dancing? Mr. Clerk.
One way to get the box in the back to stop dancing is to invite him forward.
Well, let's do that.
Item 2 is our second presentation, and I'd like to invite Ms. Heather Scott from the Sheriff Family and Community Services, who's here to speak about the Tri-City Food Bank Challenge and the Food Bank Fill-Up on July 21st, 2011.
No, I've stopped wondering.
In the corner of Barnett and Johnson at Coquitlam Center. We invite the entire community to come down with their donations of food that day and help us set a provincial record for the most food raised in 12 hours. And in doing so, of course, everyone's going to be helping families in our own community. We're serving about 900 families now who need regular support from the food bank. And on fill-up, you'll see a list of items that are most needed. The food bank has run out of rice. Pasta is important, canned fruit and vegetables, canned meat and fish, cereal for the kids, of course, juice, tomato sauce, peanut butter and jam, granola bars, protein drinks for our seniors and those who might be having cancer treatment, and formula for our young babies. So I know that you have been very busy in the city of Coquitlam as part of your third annual Tri-City Food Bank Challenge, and we're looking forward to seeing you on July 21st when you bring in the food that you have raised in the city. And I think, Selena, did you have something you or is that a mayor? I'm sorry.
It's okay. No, I do want to acknowledge, thank you very much for coming out, Philip and Heather. And I'm going to turn it over to Councillor Robinson.
So I want you to know that we have been plugging away here at Coquitlam City Hall and our civic institutions because a challenge has been raised by our colleagues at both Port Moody and Port Coquitlam. So we're never ones to back down from a challenge, and senior staff have contributed. And today, Councillor McDonnell and I did a little shop. So if the rest of council would like to join us as we present with just the donation from the few of us here.
Can't we put it in, Philip?
No, we urge you not to dump the tins on top of his head.
You know, if I could take this moment to thank the city and all the staff for their support of the food bank, that's phenomenal.
Stop, guys.
Great work. That is fantastic. Thank you so much. Are we getting shots of that? Can I get a picture of that? You betcha. My camera would just turn on. Here we go. There we go. Fantastic. Thank you. That's a great shot. Fantastic. At 5 o'clock, we'll announce how much food was raised by the Tri-City Food Drive Challenge of those 3 cities. So again, I just want to invite the entire community to come and join us. Steve Darling of Global TV is going to show up, Global TV in the morning. JRFM and Virgin Radio will be on site. We'll have hamburgers and hot dogs from Save On Foods and Mr. Mike's, face painting and all kinds of activities for the kids.
Outstanding. Well, I do want to congratulate you on what I think is a pretty creative packaging and pretty creative campaign. Philip looks enthusiastic and a bit of an overactor. And
Philip is sure helping us get our message across. Can I have a hand for Philip, everybody? Thank you for having us tonight.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you, Philip Garrison. Philip, we'll leave it at that. How do you top that, Mr. Clerk?
Yeah, minutes just don't do it.
Actually, oddly enough, I did have a chance to wear Philip's outfit at Port Moody's movie night, and it's not something you'd wear lightly.
Item 3 is the minutes of the regular council meeting held Monday, July 4th. Recommendations to approve those minutes.
Moved by Councillor Reamer, second by Councillor Robinson. All in favour? Opposed? Carried.
Item 4 is the minutes of the Land Use and Economic Development Standing Committee meeting of Monday, July 11th. Recommendations to receive those minutes.
Moved by Councillor Lynch, second by Councillor Reamer. All in favour? Opposed? Carried.
First item of business arising out of that committee's meeting concerns fourth and final reading of zoning amendment bylaw number 4182. This is the authorization for the issuance of a development permit pertaining to 610, 612, 614, and 618 Langside Avenue and 1714 Bresley Street. Recommendations to give fourth and final reading to see Coquitlam zoning amendment bylaw 4182, and that council approve the signing and sealing of the DP, and that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to execute it.
Moved by Councillor Asmussen, second by Councillor Reamer. All in favour? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 4.6 is the authorization for the issuance of a development variance permit for 3380 Horizon Drive. Before putting forward the recommendation, I would ask the mayor to call for speakers.
Development variance permit, so we ask if there are any speakers in the audience who wish to address this item. Are there any speakers to this item? Third and final time, are there any speakers to this item? Seeing none, declare this item closed. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. The recommendation is that council approve the signing and sealing of this development variance permit, and that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to execute it.
Moved by Councillor Robinson, moved by Councillor Reamer, second by Councillor Robinson. All in favour? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 4.7 pertains to a proposed road and lane cancellation application. This is for those areas adjacent to city-owned properties in northeast Coquitlam. It's Bylaw 4220. Recommendations give first, second, and third readings to City of Coquitlam Highway Dedication Cancellation Bylaw 4220 and direct that it be advertised in accordance with the Community Charter.
Moved by Councillor Reamer, seconded by Councillor Lynch. All in favour? Opposed? Carried.
And item 4.8 is the Multiculturalism Strategic Plan. The recommendation is that Council approve the Multiculturalism Strategic Plan.
Moved by Councillor Asmussen, second by Councillor Reamer. Councillor Sikora.
Thank you very much, Mayor. You know, I support this, but I'm just wondering, we're going to put on something for the people to come and see. We have a lot of, people that come to Canada from other countries, and I'll tell you what I've been getting is that right here on High Street, there's been people that have moved out because of the cost of our taxes, and a lot of them are talking about moving out, and it's frightening. The fact is that our business taxes are the highest in British Columbia by far, and people can't afford to go into small businesses and pay all these high taxes. So I don't know what is it that we're going to present to these people, try to bring them in to invest in Coquitlam, I hope, and employ people and that type of deal, and yet have this situation. So this is the thing. Matter of fact, I was at a meeting this afternoon, about 30 or 40 of them, and they're all complaining.
Okay, Councillor, this one's about the multiculturalism plan.
I know,
Okay.
but you want them to go into business in Coquitlam and other things.
Actually,
Thank you very much. Councillor Reid.
Actually, it's not that we want them to go into business here. We'd love them to go into business here, but this is more about an exchange of information and customs and how we do things in City Hall, and helping them understand what permits are and how we can ease their transition from the country that they came from to the country that they're in now. And one benefit for the item that you brought up is maybe they're going to have some ideas for us on how we can reduce taxes.
How we're going to, you're talking about permits for business.
Councillor Sikora.
No,
undoubtedly they'll deal with that issue as well when we explain the various other aspects.
Anyhow, that's what it's for, Your Worship, not.
Thank you. I know. In fact, I'll just correct a couple of points. We don't have the highest business taxes in the province, but we do have higher than we ought to have, I think, and I think most council members recognize that. We're working to reduce them, but we're also, I've been working with that particular group of Iranian businesses that had raised some issues, because there is no question their property values have gone up tremendously with the announcement that SkyTrain is coming. With the implications involved in SkyTrain coming, that involves a whole bunch of property value increases. And that's a challenge that we're going to have to work on, but it certainly isn't related to this particular item. So, thank you very much. Are there any other speakers to the multiculturalism? Oh, the chair of the multiculturalism herself, Councillor Reamer.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much, Councillor Reid, for your clarification. Much appreciated. Coquitlam is one of the most multicultural, most multiculturally diverse communities, probably in the entire nation of Canada. And I think that this particular plan will guide us and provide direction for us. And I think that staff has done a wonderful job, and I just want to also thank all the organizations and the citizens that were involved in putting this together. We are trying to better provide service to our citizens, and this multicultural strategic plan will assist us in doing that, and will assist, as Councillor Reid says, in easing the transition for new immigrants when they arrive in our city. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Seeing none. Motion is the multiculturalism plan. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you very much to staff and all of those who did participate in this process, as Councillor Reamer said.
Item 5 is the minutes of the Recreation, Sports and Culture Standing Committee meeting of Monday, July 11th. Recommendations to receive those minutes.
Moved by Councillor McIndow, second by Councillor Robinson. All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Item of business arising out of that committee's meeting concerns the Poirier Sport and Leisure Complex and an artificial turf installation. The recommendation is that Council refer consideration of flooring options for this complex to the 2012 budget process.
Moved by Councillor McIndow, second by Councillor Robinson. All in favor? Opposed? Oops, Councillor Nicholson's up.
Thank you, Your Worship. I note that in the report, there's mention of the Coquitlam Sports Centre Users Group's desire for an outdoor covered facility with various floors, and I wonder whether, I would suggest we amend this to include in our budget considerations that facility. Because we're right now looking at 3 kinds of floor covering inside, but the users group has expressed a clear desire or preference for the second facility, for something exterior. And I'd hope that we would put that into the hat when we're looking at these things at budget time.
I would assume that we're going to do that. Council did go on a tour of a number of facilities like that, I guess with the intention that we ought to try and prioritize the kinds of facilities we're going to need. And I look at the chair of Sport and Rec, Councillor McDonnell, who has activated his microphone.
I'd like to thank Councillor Nicholson for bringing this forward. It's a multi-sport complex is something that is of great interest not only to the arena folks, but also to the field sport people, baseball and soccer and whatnot. And it is coming to the budget process in the fall. Yeah.
Outstanding. The motion relates to referring the turf to budget. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Thank you, Your Worship. Item 6 is the minutes of the Engineering, Utilities and Environment Standing Committee meeting held Monday, July 11th. Recommendations to receive those minutes.
Moved by Councillor Robinson, second by Councillor Nicholson. All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
I'm sorry, Your Worship, if I could ask just for a brief moment, it appears there might be some trouble with the webcasting video, and I just wanted to consult.
Very good. We'll take a short recess here.
Thank you.
My still got the broadcast up.
Thank you for your patience, and we
I'm
can
going to
move on
call the
to
meeting
next.
back to order then. Mr. Clerk.
Thank you. Item 6.4 concerns a final report of the Partington Creek Integrated Watershed Plant.
We did declare the last vote was positive on receipt of the minutes, right?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
Recommendations to adopt the final report of the Partington Creek Integrated Watershed Management Plan dated July 5th and refer the recommended stormwater improvements in the plan to the city's capital budgeting process.
Moved by Councillor Asmussen, second by Councillor Reamer. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 7 is the minutes of the Strategic Priorities Administration Protective Services Standing Committee meeting of Monday, July 11th. Recommendations to receive those minutes.
Moved by Councillor Lynch, second by Councillor Reamer. Councillor Sikora.
Yes, thank you very much. I noticed that we're going to be debating the budget till...
The next item.
It's the next item, Councillor
it's the
Sikora.
next item.
We're not on that item yet. Okay? Good. Okay. So this is on the minutes. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Next, the item of business arising out of that committee's meeting pertains to the 2012 financial plan schedule and the recommendations to approve the attached schedule.
Second.
Moved by Councillor Robinson, second by Councillor Nicholson. Councillor Sikora.
Yeah, thank you. I notice we're going to be discussing the budget till and give it the first, second, and third reading in February 20th. Two things that bother me is I'd hope that we would at least come up this year with something what the budget might look, what the increase of taxes might look next year. Because to me, when I go through what I think is going to be happening, is that the taxes are going to be pretty frightening. The budgets are going to be frightening. Secondly, in here, we're going to be waiting until March, and we don't have to give it their fourth and final reading. And we use many excuses that we let out contracts in December, we get a better bid for it, and a few other things. That's why the budget is done in December. But it's not so this year. Now, we don't have to give it the fourth and final reading till May. This is a good year to go for zero-based budgeting throughout all the departments. Because then we'd find out exactly what the surpluses are, and I know that we spent $3.4 million of the surplus already.
No, we haven't.
And I noticed that there's other surpluses coming in, and I'd hope that we would go through the budget line by line and zero-based budgeting to where, because I can see, Mayor, that the taxes for next year is going to be far higher than any other year Coquitlam's ever had. And that because we got a debt load we've taken on, and I know there's some shrugging the shoulders and a few other things. We've taken some debt loads on that have to be repaid. There's many other things that are happening, and I can assure you that we're going to have a problem. And I think that, might be a good idea to come up with something for the taxpayers before the election, so we can stand in front of the people and tell them exactly as it is, and let them vote us in or vote us out. I think that we should be straightforward with the taxpayers. To me, it appears like it's going to be a very, very bad year. And even, the businesses, we're now the highest business taxes in British Columbia by far. We're higher than even Vancouver now. And I don't know where it's all going to end, but I don't see any relief on the horizon there. So that's what bothers me. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other speakers? Actually, I will address a couple of those because we aren't the highest business taxes in the province. I said that earlier. Also, you're wrong about the budget decision day is actually December 6th for capital items, and that's to maintain the clout that we have related to the bidding of projects on the capital side. You've always pushed, Councillor Sikora, for a later budget, and I concur that later would be better on the operating side, particularly in an election year. And that's part of the reason for this one. It's an election year. We may have some new councillors, and I know when I was new on council, that first budget came on the Monday, 2 days after the election day. And that's a little bit of a pressure that council has determined that isn't appropriate to throw the new council members immediately into a budget process. So there are just important reasons why we do it this way, and it's...
Okay. On a point of order, Mayor, I read here, February 20th, it will be first, second, and third reading of the financial plan. So 5 years. To me, it's next year, February 20th. Okay. Yeah. That's what I'm reading. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And just above that, it says December 6th, budget decision day for utilities and capital components of the budget. That's on December 6th. That's the capital budget. That's the parts where we go for bids. The rest is operating. Okay. Any other questions? Seeing none. The financial plan schedule only. This is just the schedule. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Sikora is opposed. Motion carries.
Item 8 pertains to the Evergreen ALRT line, and this is for the provision of public washrooms. The recommendation is that Council direct staff to forward the report to the Minister of Transportation, Infrastructure and TransLink, requesting that the City of Coquitlam seeks enhanced protocols and design adjustments in accordance with option 2 of the report in order to provide improved accessible public washroom access on the Evergreen line.
Moved by Councillor Lynch, second by Councillor Bremer. Discussion. Councillor Nicholson, who raised this issue at the beginning many months ago.
Yes, I
Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I'd be thrilled if staff had come back and told me that we were able to tell the province and other people what to do. But I think that this is a good report that takes us in the right direction. I hate to get editorial at this point in the process, but I'm not sure that the words requesting that the City of Coquitlam really mean much in that. Forward the report to the Minister and to TransLink. Seeking enhanced protocols is what we're doing. Requesting that the City of Coquitlam seek. We are seeking. We're not asking them to have us seek. So I would like to drop requesting that the City of Coquitlam change seeks to seeking. And I think that's editorial and preserves the thrust of the motion.
And I'm going to accept it as that unless there's an objection. Seeing none, the motion reads TransLink seeking enhanced protocols. Anything else, Councillor Nichols?
That's it.
Thank you very much. Motion's on the floor. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 9 is a progress update from the Staff Committee on Business Improvements and Outdated Rules. We have an introduction by Mr. John Dumont, who's the Deputy City Manager, and the recommendation is to receive the report for information.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. When we produced
moved by Councillor Nicholson, second by Councillor Asmundson. Mr. Dumont.
Getting a little ahead of myself. Thank you very much, Your Worship. When we produced a work program for our Business Improvements and Outdated Rules initiative in January, Council had asked us to do an update in 6 months' time, and that is the report before Council tonight. We have made good progress. We had identified 40 items that were our primary focus for 2011, and those were identified as immediate and short-term actions that we could do in the first year. And we've, like I say, made good progress in a number of areas, such as improved purchasing and refund processes for a variety of city services, improved phone and customer service processes, and we've also expanded our online information and forms. In addition, with the support of Council from May of this year, we've also started in on some of our longer-term actions as well, such as looking at consolidating and reviewing our bylaws, looking at an online customer service directory that will go along with our website upgrade, and continuing to expand the services that we can provide online as well as online information. So there's good progress being made, and what we're really trying to do here is serve our customers better and create a culture of continuous improvement. So sort of ingrained in the organization that we should be continually looking at ways to better serve our citizens, and we appreciate Council's support on this initiative. And that's my update for now, and it's before Council for information.
Thank you very much, and thank you to all the staff at City Hall for the work that they've done on this. This isn't the most glamorous job, but it certainly is very much needed in a city the size of Coquitlam. See, Councillor Robinson.
Great, thank you, Your Worship. I'm very appreciative of this. I think there's always opportunity to do things better, and I appreciate the moving the culture continually in that direction. But I do have a couple of questions about some of the action items. Item 11 talked about the combining the Civic City Awards, and I do remember a report coming forward that talked about it, but I don't think we actually combined any civic awards. Is that?
Mr. Dumont.
I think you are correct. We haven't combined any events to date, and when we did look at that, we got a broad range of feedback. There was a number of events and organizations that liked the way we were doing it now, and didn't want to be combined with other organizations or other events. So there was that part of the mix. But I'll just refer it to Jay, our city clerk, because he was involved in that.
Yeah, I think between both Councillor Robinson and Mr. Dumont's comments captured the broad range of it. What we did at the time was present it to all of the city managers in the city and ask them to bear that in mind as they went forward, and to look for those opportunities and to let them arise sort of organically out of some of those committees, and encourage the bringing of them together. But as Mr. Dumont noted, the majority felt, and we saw one tonight where the awards were presented during Environmental Week, some of those conditions, there was less variables for moving things around than we at first thought there might be, and it came down to issues like that they wanted to have it in conjunction with a certain national date and time. So we have it complete because we've done the initial analysis, but we're looking to see what happens over time, and it's still at top of mind for those reasons.
Okay, I had a similar kind of question with item 27, where it said review time frame for festival event licenses, and again, it's ticked off as it's removed, it's been done, it's complete, or it's removed off the list. And I'm trying to remember sort of what the outcome was of that. Does that ring a bell? Review time frame? Item 27.
I'll refer that one to Michelle.
festival event licenses.
Thank you. I believe there was a policy brought forward by Parks and Rec regarding festival and special events that has been changed, that Council approved. Sorry, I'm just reading it. I have the policy here, so I'm just reading as I go. And there has been a committee formed, a multi-departmental committee formed to manage these festivals and events so that they can be planned further in advance. Okay. So there has been changes with that process.
Great. So just my suggestion, because in reading this, and I know this is the first time we're reporting out, is it possible instead of using language like review, because all it says is that we've reviewed it, but it doesn't say what actions we've taken to actually change an outcome? So I think it would be, I would find it really helpful, and I'm just wanting to know if that in future reports there could be something that speaks to the outcome rather than the action taken.
Through the chair, absolutely, we can do that. I actually have some notes on the actions taken on some of these, but I just didn't understand exactly what the note said. But we will certainly do that for our next follow-up report.
That would be great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Hunt, Manager Corporate Planning. Next speaker, Councillor Sikora.
Yeah, thank you. I noticed, Mr. Dumas, that on 2011, we gave her approximately $74,000. Now, that's an estimate, but I don't know whether that was a figure that you definitely got 74,000. What would the budget be in 2012 for this work?
Mr. Dumont.
Thank you very much. Through the chair, we're not sure at this stage, but I suspect there probably will be. If anything, it'll be a minor budget. What we've done, we had some initial startup costs for this initiative, but we've basically worked it into our business plan priorities, a work program now, and we've assigned staff from each of the work areas to be responsible for their particular items from their departments, and so it's largely going to be a staff-driven exercise from this time forward, and most of the cost of the initiative is just staff time of staff that would be here anyway. So it's just been incorporated into our work program.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Reid.
Thank you. There's been some good work put into this, I can see. One of the concerns I have, because it's over many different departments, when we're updating and creating reviews of bylaws and permits and licenses and etc., and they're going online, how are these going to be continually updated and made sure that they're current all the time? I'm hoping the answer will not be to hire more staff, but that the current staff will be undertaking the commitment to update these.
That's correct. It'll be current staff. In terms of some of the processes, we'll be able to have automated systems to upgrade information, but with things like bylaws, even as it is right now, there's a process and it takes staff time to update them, whether it's manually or online, and that will continue, and we don't anticipate there will be more work that will be generated. We're hopeful that as we get more automated, the work will actually be less.
In some of the other cities, simple things like obtaining tax information and surveys and that are not charged for by other cities, and you can get them online, that information. And are we ever going to get there, or are we going to continue the archaic system in this city hall?
Well, we are putting more information online, and that was some of the initial actions that have been taken. I can't comment on what we charge for versus what other municipalities charge for. Right now, I don't have those details with me. But
it's not what we charge. It's the fact that we have to have people there to do it, and it just doesn't pay in the end. And a lot of cities that, when you phone for certain information to do your business with, they'll just say, oh, you can just go online and do this, do that. And I see Michelle nodding. And, you have to sometimes weigh if you're collecting, $100 a day and it costs you $300 a day to do the job. It's not making a lot of sense. So I hope we're keeping that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Reamer.
Thank you. I want to thank staff very much for this excellent report. I really appreciated attachment A, which shows us the status of your long-term and short-term actions.
With respect to the Next Steps program, you've indicated that you're going to implement processes to better collect input from our citizens, business developers, and investors. And I'm just wondering if there's been any discussion as to what that will entail.
Thank you, through your worship. We did speak to that a little bit in the report. It's our goal to focus on some of the existing things that we do now to obtain information. So we'd be looking at gathering information from our customer service counters, using the web to get information, possibly using some polling, things like that. Things that we do as a matter of business now, as opposed to setting up a separate process for gathering information.
Okay.
We haven't worked out those details yet.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Asmundson.
Well, thank you. Good report, Mr. Dumont. We're moving in the right direction, and I see staff has come on board quite enthusiastically about improving the operations of the city throughout. I see that the more difficult step we will be going into is when we start doing and talking about the longer-term actions that are more complex, larger systems to deal with, which will require some resources from the city to help facilitate them. And I look forward to seeing your recommendations on which ones we should be moving on first. I think the big part now is that, anybody that has to go out there that has a thought or a process that we can do better, bring it forward. I think that's the input that we need from citizens and everybody. And I think the other part of it, when we talk about businesses, we have our new economic development manager, and I think part of his key role can be listening to businesses, liaising with them, and bringing that information to us at the city to help us improve those processes. But a job well done by staff on these 40 recommendations moving forward, and I look forward to the continuation of this program. Thank you.
That's our last speaker. Motion's on the floor. All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Item 10 is the Metro Vancouver Regional Growth Strategy Implementation Agreement. This report was provided on table, and I invite people in the audience to pick up a copy at the back of the room if they haven't so far. The recommendation on the report is that Council approve the implementation agreement with Metro Vancouver that is attached to the report and authorize the Mayor to execute the agreement on behalf of the City of Coquitlam.
Moved by Councillor Asmundson, second by Councillor Lynch. Councillor Sikora.
Yeah, thank you very much. Mr. McIntyre. Mr. McIntyre, I have not been able to read this thoroughly, but because it just came on our desk tonight, tell me, is it much different than what you presented to us about a few days ago? And what are the additions in this compared to what was given to us a few days ago?
Mr. McIntyre.
Yes, thank you, Worship. And through the chair, a good question, Councillor Sikora. It is virtually identical to what was shared with Council last week. And I'm sorry, it does have to appear as a blue paper on table item. The reason for that is that this material was received and considered and ultimately approved by Metro Vancouver's Intergovernmental Committee and the board meeting, which I believe you're attending last Friday. So we have just received that from them, so we are now relaying that on to Council. But I am pleased to advise that the key parts of it, particularly the agreement, are word for word what we shared with Council last week.
Okay, now one more question that I have to ask. I remember serving a notice of motion on a golf course in Western Plateau, 2/3. It was instilled. I phoned Metro and they had it in there. Has that changed, or is it still 2/3?
Mr. McIntyre.
Your Worship, another good question. Council may recall when the regional growth strategy, the proposed regional growth strategy was brought before Council some months ago for consideration of acceptance. There was also that motion put on there that was a request to that the Metro Board make some changes in the RGS around the designation of the golf course lands and the removal of one of the clauses in the implementation chapter. So that motion was put on the table at that time. It was set aside because Council at that time did not accept the RGS, and so it's there sort of on hold. If Council supports entering into the implementation agreement tonight, we would bring this back next Monday night again with that recommendation. So we'll be back on the table for council next week.
Well, pardon me, but this council voted on the RGS on the golf course, on my notice of motion, and I phoned Metro, and they said that that's definitely going in and will stay there even if we vote against this RGS that they formed. So I want to make it very, very clear, because I know here just a few months ago, if it wasn't for Alan Brown, we'd been going 1/3. Has that been changed? Because I know the committee went to this arbitration or whatever it was on meetings, and one of them was asking in any land use matters that 1/3 of Metro Vancouver was enough. Now, is that 1/3 or is it still 75% or 66%?
Councillor Segura, this has been dealt with a couple of times. That only applied to urban land uses. It wouldn't have applied to the golf course in any case, and we didn't go through with that one. We ended up it's not in the document. This document is the same as the document you would have seen on Friday at Metro Vancouver. It's the same thing that Metro Vancouver, when you voted on it at Metro Vancouver, it's the same document.
Yeah, all I want to know is that golf course protected by 2/3 of Vancouver Metro Board. If somebody wants to change the land use designation on that golf course, I want to make it very, very clear.
Mr. McIntyre.
Your Worship, again, if Council moves to accept the regional growth strategy and Council reiterates that request to the Metro Board, that would go forward to Metro Vancouver. They would make note of that, as they have with other municipalities around the Lower Mainland that accepted the RGS but also had their own special requests in. They make note of that. They treat that as such. And the next time the RGS is updated, they'll actually go in and make those changes. But for their purposes, they would see that as the condition prevailing in Coquitlam.
If I could just add on to that, the actual council was very clear in terms of what it wanted. Metro staff made note of it and said they would support that and did support that in a similar manner to how they supported every other request that every other municipality made through the process. So the actual mechanics of actually capturing it in their document is a subsequent step that would happen after we formally sign on to the RGS, but it is very clear, the staff have made it very clear at Metro that there are no concerns along those lines. They would abide by what this council has said, and this council has been very clear. And so there are no concerns in that regard.
So it's still 2/3?
It will be after this.
Well, it was before. No, hold it. Councillor Reid, sorry, you're one that was fighting it. Look, I don't want to get into a contest in here with the council members. Very, very plain. I served on notice of motion. The notice of motion went through. I phoned GVD or Metro Vancouver. They said, it's in, 2/3. And I said, what happens if we vote against the RGS? It doesn't matter. That's still there. I want to make sure before I vote on this tonight, is it 2/3 or is it something else? Because if it's something else, I can't support it.
Okay. If we do not support this tonight, there is no RGS because it is not accepted. So it's a moot point. Metro needs unanimous approval of all Metro municipalities in order for the RGS to go forward. They have clearly said that they firmly believe that all the compromises that were made as a result of the RGS, including our compromise on the golf course, is so important that that's why they made those compromises. They have indicated that all those compromises they will totally support in whatever manner each individual council asked for. We have asked for what you put forward in your notice of motion, so that is clear as on the record. But if we defeat this tonight, there is no RGS, period, and there are no amendments.
I understand that. Now, I noticed that we had 4 days of meetings, and there was about 8 people on the Metro board, and there was 3 people on our board. They all getting paid.
No, we're not.
plus the staff.
No, we weren't, Councillor
Ours
Sokola.
probably doesn't get paid, but the rest of them are.
The Metro Committee has whatever procedures they have to be paid as a result of their committees. Our reps did not get any additional remuneration.
So also, and I think that's great, but also at the same time, I'd like to know just what this cost the Metro Board for these 4 days, for their board, the directors, the staff, and a few other things that the time was put in. I'd like to get some sense of dollars that are involved, because taxpayers' dollars.
I would suggest the way of going about that is after we deal with this, perhaps in a separate motion, Council can consider to ask Metro to provide that information, and I'm sure Metro would give that information.
Well, actually, at the Metro Board, this was dealt with on Friday. You could have raised the issue then at the Metro Board, and I think you ought to raise it next time you're at the Metro Board.
What can be raised on Friday, what can be raised today? I'm looking for this, because the one on Friday didn't have Coquitlam in there. This was not there. And
sorry?
And I'm just saying this, that, you know, now that it's coming to being, that a fact is, I like to have that information if I can. I think it's only right. But I'll tell you what, when I go through this, and maybe I'm not reading it right, but I think I am, all we've gained, all we put in the last 4 days, and what we've gained is very low, very minute, and all we paid is a little lip service for 4 days. That's about all we did with the RGS, because we gained. The fact is that every 5 years they will look at it. Outside of that, I don't think we accomplished anything else.
We didn't even get that.
So, you know, frankly, I'll tell you, I don't want to say what I was going to say, but I better. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Okay. Councillor Robinson.
Thank you. As one of the people not paid to spend 4 days in dialogue with Metro, it was certainly an eye-opening experience to see how folks operate down there. I actually think that we gained a fair bit, given where we were at the beginning and what we came out of at the end. The three things that stood out for me was that we asked for very specific metrics that would actually measure Metro's performance regarding the regional growth strategy. So every year we are now going to get some performance measures reported out on how the RGS is operating across the region. And that wasn't necessarily part of the metrics originally planned. And even though we asked for them, there wasn't enough response. It was a yeah, we'll deal with that, and it actually never appeared. So we got that, and they were actually quite amenable to that. It was the one item that they were most amenable to. The other, that review every 5 years, I think, is really important. I think we ought to take, you know, when you have a 30-year plan, if you don't take some time to make sure that you're on track, you could go sideways for 20 years and not know that you're going sideways. And so I think that's actually pretty significant, Councillor Sikora. So I actually think that it was time well spent on our part. I do have some concerns about how much money got spent on the other side. And I would actually ask that you, as our representative at Metro, bring that up at the Metro table. I think our citizens here have heard what you're wanting, but I think that that's your job as our representative, is to hold that organization accountable. So I'm going to ask that you, at the next Metro Board meeting, ask that question. What did it cost to have 11 members of the Intergovernmental Committee participate in that process? They could have chosen a smaller number, and I think I would really appreciate you taking that on.
I'll get to the answer.
I also want to really thank staff, our city manager, Pete Stublin, Jim McIntyre, and Bruce Irvine. They were fabulous in terms of preparing us. I got the Coles Notes version of planning and regional growth strategy, really intense, and what the community charter would allow us to do and not do. And I felt prepared as a negotiator, and to me that really says about how great your staff are, because going in there and talking to these folks who've been around for 15 and 20 years could be a bit intimidating, and I really felt like I had my head in it in a way that was that made me confident that I could speak on behalf of our citizens in making sure that this is a stronger regional growth strategy. So I think this was actually, in the end, I think we actually are further ahead than when we started, and I look forward to, I do hope, I will certainly be supporting this this agreement and look forward to signing on to the regional growth strategy so that we can free up our time as well as staff time. This took up a fair bit of staff time, and I think we have other things that we need to be paying attention to. And I think we've done a really good job of protecting the lands that needed to be protected and making sure that the regional growth strategy is a better document as a result of our concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McInerney.
Thank you. I won't be supporting this recommendation. I've got a couple of points, and I've just put them down in the Reader's Digest version. The Regional Growth Strategy is a 30-year document that's supposed to guide the 24 cities in Metro Vancouver over that time period. All of the cities have exceptions to the RGS, some of them major, which are a contradiction to the strategy, and these exceptions may never get sorted out. There's no mention of what the RGS means in the context to the rest of BC and to Canada. This is an important missing piece to the busiest port in Canada. We've all seen the appalling disregard by Metro Vancouver for the cities throughout this process. I witnessed a verbal attack on one of the process facilitators right here in this chamber. It was so severe and so disrespectful that he resigned. That's one of the problems with Metro Vancouver. It's an old boys club that excludes some cities on committees and rewards others with plum, highly paid committees. If your city isn't part of the inner circle, then your city is underrepresented on those decision-making committees. There's too much bullying behavior. That's why I don't trust them when they say that they'll look at the 5-year breakout clause that Coquitlam's put forward. They say they will, but it hasn't been added to the RGS yet, and I hope they will, but I won't be surprised at all if the end result is watered down and ineffective. I'd like to thank our staff and our council for all their hard work trying to make this a workable document for all of Metro Vancouver. However, there's just too many inconsistencies in here for me to vote for it.
Very much. Thank you very much. And Councillor Lynch.
Thank you. Well, I will be supporting the implementation agreement. I was hesitant to go down this road. I've said before that I didn't expect a lot of major changes. I don't think there was. I think there's been some successes. It's been a process where both Metro and Coquitlam are able to say that they've achieved something. There's some successes, but basically what we've achieved is an agreement that they'll report back to us, or there'll be workshops and stuff like that. So the thing is, though, I don't see it as being a positive thing to not go forward with the implementation agreement, because I don't think we're going to get any more than we've already got. I think this is the best we could have hoped for through this process. And I know how much time that our representatives have put in. I know the tremendous amount of time that staff have put in. And even just on our side, the amount of cost to Coquitlam to participate in this process was pretty significant, I think, regardless of what it costs for Metro Vancouver and the pay that they may have achieved at that time. So I didn't expect a whole lot to be coming from this agreement. I think that it's some successes, and I think now's the time that we need to concentrate on the other activities that are happening in the region, and the time that we now need to let our staff start to build their relationships with the staff of our neighboring communities, as well as the politicians throughout the region, because we do have some regional activities that have come forward that we're going to want the support of our neighbors, and we're going to need to work towards those working relationships. And I think to go further down this road is going to further disrupt any relationships that we've attempted to build or that we may be able to use to our advantage in the future.
Thank you. Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll be supporting this. I appreciate some of my fellow councillors who've recited some of the failings of the regional growth strategy and the challenges of dealing with regional government. Nonetheless, it's critical for us and for all the other municipalities in the region that we find a way to work together, to plan together, or we will end up with a balkanization of the whole Lower Mainland and accomplish a great deal less than we can by working together. I also think it's important that we and other member municipalities stand up, as Coquitlam did, when we think it's not going in the right direction, express our reservations clearly, negotiate as hard as we can to get the best solution that we can, and having done that, to then join the group and work to move things forward. I really appreciate the work that staff have done, work that our negotiating team did through those 4 meetings and all the work that went in getting ready for them. I noticed Councillor Robinson commented that it's time for our staff to get back to other things. We have in this agreement required that our staff will go and do a bunch more things around the regional growth strategy. One of the notable things about the RGS is that it actually produced unanimity on this council. We all rejected it. It becomes apparent as we speak that we rejected it for a variety of reasons. My largest issue in the RGS was the lack of a definition of regional significance. That, to me, is what makes it necessary for us to work together. We need to know what we think is regional and what we think belongs to us. In this agreement, we've sent the staff back to try and work together across the region and come up with that definition of regional significance. I tried. I thought it would be great if we could just propose one and they would all agree. I can't do it, but I have a lot of confidence in Mr. McIntyre and his team. So I'll be supporting this. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. I've got myself on the list. I'll be... No, I'm on the list. I'm sorry. You want to go first? Go.
No, I just wanted...
You're next.
Go ahead.
Sorry, you're next. I just want... I'll be supporting it as well, and I do want to, as others councillors have done, thank staff. There was tremendous staff support for the 3 of us as we went forward on this challenging process. We found it very tough to take the high road for 10 weeks when the first 8 weeks was spent trying to come to some agreement on when the first meeting would be and what process would be used. And when we, as Councillor McDonnell said, when we lost one of our 2 facilitators because of Metro's behavior, it showed a daunting task ahead of us. But we were able to come to an agreement, I think, largely because of perseverance on behalf of us to find an agreement, because this does require us. I'm a strong proponent of regional planning, and I've said so before in this chamber, that this region needs to plan together. We are 22 distinct municipalities, and that creates all kinds of challenges related to transportation, related to planning, related to infrastructure. And Metro Vancouver has largely been about infrastructure. It's largely been about pipes. And for it now to be about regional planning is a larger role that it will play. And we need to get this right, because it will be a 30-year document. It will last for 30 years. It will last until our children are quite grown. And so, and there are problems with it still. We don't have a definition of regional significance. We still have tremendous inconsistency. That's that inconsistency that brought us to the challenges related to the golf course, because we wanted the golf courses to be labeled consistently, and we found by and large they can't be. They aren't labeled consistently across the region, and we reverted back to conservation. We couldn't do that in the process, but Metro Vancouver has agreed that once this is passed, we will be able to make those changes. And but that still won't solve the problem, because there will be incredible inconsistency. And it goes in every aspect. Every type of land use has those inconsistencies. There is an oil refinery in Burnaby that's listed as residential. Now, I don't know how many people live there, but it's an operating oil refinery, and maybe the night watchman. It ought not to be listed as residential, at least I don't think so. And that level of inconsistency is because Metro Vancouver made great effort to concede to each community that had made requests to it. And that produces then a document that is not a regional plan as much as it is a collection of local plans and local aspirations. And if that's what we wanted, if that's what we set out to achieve, then we got it. But I don't think that that's regional planning. I think that it's something else. The 11 members of Intergovernmental Committee that attended, they seemed to listen attentively. They weren't permitted to speak, it seemed, but we did end up with a process that I think produced, as Councillor Lynch said, the best result we could have achieved. I'm comfortable with the gains we made. It certainly doesn't perfect the regional growth strategy. It makes it better, though, and so I'll be supporting it. And now, Councillor Reid, you're next.
Thank you. There are no words to thank staff for what we've put them through in the last few months with this regional growth strategy. They pretty well dropped everything, and every day and every hour we were living, eating, and sleeping it. Mr. McIntyre has done a yeoman's job because he also had to do the job at Metro as well as the job here. There's a couple of things that I have to say. I'm kind of disconcerted right now to hear that Councillor Lynch didn't want to go down the road to this. None of us. But none of us want to go down the road to having to disagree with the other cities. But sometimes you just have to have the courage to stand up and fight for what's right and fight for what you believe in, and we did. And it was a very interesting exercise, and I've been around for a few years and down at Metro and know a lot of these people, and it was interesting to me when they were asked on the one day only, the other members of the cities were asked, and everything that they had to say was to do with what was handled basically in the other parts, in the what am I trying to say? The other part of the agreement.
No, the context.
The regional context statement. Thank you. My mind's going. And they never really got. I don't really think yet a lot of cities get the gist of it, other than the planners, that we were really after the basic tenets of the RGS document itself. And that's where Councillor Nicholson's concerns about regional consistency and definitions of what is regionally significant. You know, when we started out on this, I remember reading it, and I have to thank the Westwood Plateau people, because without you, I wouldn't have got so darn mad and dug so deep into this thing that I read everything about it and kept reading and then watched how everything changed. And at first, they only wanted public lands in the green zones. And then you start looking at what the green zones were. So we made our Made in Coquitlam solution, and we're getting all there. Now I look at the green zones. Why aren't riparian areas in every city? Why are they not listed? Why aren't they protected? But they're not. Recreation and conservation, I don't really think they go together too well. And now I look in some of the cities in the regional context statements, they can have enhanced tourism opportunities in the recreation conservation zones. You have to question that too. So there's been so much that has come along to fog this up. But I will tell you we have gained something. We certainly gained the respect of the business community and the people that provide jobs, the Port of Vancouver, the BC Business Council, the Urban Development Institute. They are all interested and wanted input on this because these are the economic drivers of our province, and we need to have this. We've also, the province is now very aware of the power grab, and I would suggest that both sides of the legislature better stand up and take notice as to who will be determining the economic growth of this region. Because I can tell you now, I don't think it's going to be either side of the house, and I think they better stand up, pull their socks up, and take a really good look around. Have we gained something? I think we gained the respect of some people that in our communities that realize that, you know, sometimes you actually have to take the big budget book, as Mayor Stewart has said, the big gray book, and you pass, what, an $800 million budget, and you've only read one page. People don't read everything, and we did. We did because we were forced to do it by our citizens. I think we've gained just by the pure fact that we drew attention to what a minefield this document can be for some people. And do you think we got what we wanted? Absolutely not. We did get an implementation agreement. That's the best we can get right now. And did they think that we had good points? Yes, and we made sure there was a statement in the implementation agreement that made them admit that we had good points. And obviously, they know we have good points because they voted against our 5-year kick clause going in, and they stuck to their guns because they don't want everyone to have a review in 5 years. And with the implementation agreement, I think we've got the best that we can. I think that it was a hard-fought battle, and it was us three and our staff against the big intergovernmental committee at Metro, and I don't think it was necessary to have them all there, but they were. And we had 3 at our table, and I think they could have had 3 at their table, which would have saved the taxpayers considerable funds. But that is up to them to run their organization and rerun ours. Would I do it again? Yes. And I'll tell you why. Because I got a call from Councillor Robinson this morning to tell me that after all of this and after all of the hopefully respectful debate that we had at their table, there's an article in today's paper that says that, oh yeah, it's done, it's a done deal, and we've come and we agree. And how disrespectful is that when we haven't even voted on it? As of this minute, we haven't even voted on it. And yet they've called it a done deal this morning. And I think that's disrespectful to us, and I think it's pretty damn arrogant. And I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Zakori, you've already spoken on this item. We could entertain a motion for a second round, but I'm going to ask the next speaker who hasn't spoken yet, next 2 actually, and we'll get them first, and then we can entertain a motion for a second round if you like. Councillor Asmundson.
Thank you very much. This council and open councilling unanimously voted to not support the RGS, and with our concerns that we head with the RGS. And we went forward into a negotiation with Metro over those concerns, and I think our staff has mentioned, Councillor Reid, Mayor Stewart, Councillor Robinson did a yeoman's job going ahead. When you get into negotiations, you don't get everything you want. You try for the best that you can. I think they did exactly that, getting at the best they could at the table for us, and we did come up with a win. We did improve, and Metro's even recognized that we did improve the draft. I think the 2 issues is the kick clause and the outcomes every year being reported back. I think those are 2 very key areas of this. So we're moving forward with this, and I want to thank staff for all their hard work on this. I know that Metro can bury you in paperwork at times and make it difficult for a small staff, because they have a lot more staff over there than what we have here dealing with this. And I know there's a lot of weekends spent away from your family and friends to do this, and I thank you for that extra time.
Thank you. And Councillor Reamer.
Thank you. I also am going to fully support this agreement. I attended the very first meeting, which was here in council chambers, and after having attended that meeting, I kind of held out very little hope that we were going to come to this point. So I want to thank Mayor Stewart, Councillor Reid, and Councillor Robinson, and our staff, in particular Mr. McIntyre, for just doing a fabulous job, because if you had been there at that first meeting and seen what transpired and now see what we have now, you'd be absolutely amazed. It's not perfect. It's not the perfect agreement. We didn't get everything that we wanted. However, what I think we did was I think we set a really good example for other municipalities to follow in the future should they have issues and concerns with anything that Metro Vancouver puts forward. So I think that our city can stand very proud and tall, and I think everybody did a wonderful job. And while it's not perfect, you know, had it gone some other way, or had we gone a little further into binding arbitration or something like that, we may well not have had what we were able to achieve. And so in that vein, I am going to support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sikora, did you want to move a second round?
Well, just if I could, number 1, I have no other choice but support it as a GVD representative. Yeah, because certainly, you know, I represent the council, If I was elected...
Councillor Nicholson moves second round. Councillor Robinson seconds the motion. All in favour? Opposed? I'm going to give it to you. Go ahead.
Okay. I'm going to have to support it because this council tells me that I must support it. You know, so I have no other choice. The fact is I'm a council representative to the GVD. If I was elected by the taxpayers of this community to go to the GVD, I'd be individual. That wouldn't have to pay attention to our council in here. That I could do a lot of other things, you know, vote against it or a few other things, but certainly it doesn't give me the chance to be able to do so because I am a council representative. This council appointed me to go to Metro Vancouver. So I'll have no other choice but support it.
Well, actually, on that point, Councillor Sikora, you swore an oath when you went to Metro Vancouver that you would vote to the benefit of Metro Vancouver. You actually owe them the duty. You don't owe us the duty when you get there. Well, it's actually against your oath to abide by your...
Maybe, I don't think I'll be against my oath. If it is, I'm going to be voting against it, okay? Very, very simple. I'll read that oath very carefully. But also, Marine answer from UDI said that we did not accomplish what we should have accomplished. The UDI, if a lot of people know what UDI is, Urban Development Institute, they're very unhappy with what is happening. So really, well, I'm sorry, but that's exactly the email that we got from Marine Answer. I'm sorry, I'll get it to you. So she was unhappy with it, you know, that we didn't accomplish what we should accomplish. So they're unhappy about it. So maybe we'll have to go down. If I'll read the oath, and if it's correct, I'll certainly be voting against it at the Metro Board.
The time to read the oath is when you swear. The UDI is not us. We went to fight for the concerns that we had related to the RGS. We were very clear about those concerns. There was 5 concerns, 6 recommendations that we had that we felt could address those concerns. Our concerns were not UDI's concerns. They had other issues, and admittedly, they came to the table with those issues and tried to get them included. We didn't include them in our negotiations because they weren't our issues. I don't expect that UDI is satisfied with the metrics position, for example, that Councillor Robinson fought so hard for, because those metrics were about making us being able to hold Metro Vancouver to financial account for the kinds of challenges that we felt this might create. And so I make no apologies to the business community. I recognize that they weren't well included here. They weren't well included because for some reason the one lens that we didn't put the regional growth strategy through was the economic lens, the chance of creating jobs, the chance of using port lands, for example, in a more strategic way. UDI has some serious concerns, and I can concur with them. The business community has some serious concerns, and I know that Councillor Reid has been in contact with many of these groups to try to understand better their concerns as well, to see to the extent to which we could include them. But ultimately, our concerns were the ones that we raised. But I do want to finish, if I could, with some deep praise for Councillor Reid and for Councillor Robinson, who were incredibly tenacious and gave tremendous support, and I tell you, they stood up under fire incredibly and represented their community very, very well, and I want to take my hat off to them. We've said our great things about staff who stayed up every night so that in the morning we had documents fully prepared in response to documents that were never seemed to be given to us at the beginning of the day, always seemed to be given to us at 5 o'clock in the evening on a Friday. And by Monday, we had to have a response. So I thank staff. I certainly thank Councillor Robinson and Councillor Reid, who really represented their council incredibly well in a tough process. No other speakers. The motion is the regional... Where are we at here? That we approve the implementation agreement with Metro Vancouver. All in favour? All opposed? Councillor Sikora and Councillor McDonnell are opposed. The motion carries.
Thank you, Your Worship. That is the last formal item on the agenda.
Around the table.
Councillor Reid had something.
Somehow I got this, and my 2 colleagues to my left there didn't get this. On park, they're really nifty little parking things. Does staff have this?
It's a document from a park.
Okay, well, they're really
Not
nifty
familiar.
little parking things, so I'm going to give it to you because I like them. Thank you.
Councillor Reid believes vehemently in parking. Anybody else? Seeing none, the motion. Councillor Asmundson, Councillor McDonnell to adjourn. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. As is consistent with our procedures, we'll allow a question period of up to 15 minutes on tonight's agenda. If anyone has a question, please, you're allowed an opportunity subject to a 2-minute maximum time limit. That isn't with a preamble, and we have to agree ahead of time. No preambles, it's just for questions, and we'll direct most of them to staff because typically they're technical questions, but please come forward.
I promise, no preamble.
There you go.
Just a question for Maggie Moss, 1550 Tanglewood Lane, Coquitlam. I have a question in regard to the regional growth strategy, and I did see the map that went in from Coquitlam on March 22nd, and I was absolutely thrilled to see the amount of riparian areas, the green spaces, everything that had gone back in, as well as the golf course. And I was a little bit concerned when I heard Mr. McIntyre say, next time it is reviewed, we'll look at sort of putting these changes, or Metro Vancouver will look at these changes to go back in. And I'm sort of concerned that all of these wonderful spaces that have got back in, I listened to all the tapes, I listened to everything at the dispute meetings, and I didn't hear these things coming up at all. I didn't hear the Westwood Golf Course or anything. So I guess I just need to know, do you think there are going to be any problems getting all of these areas put back into conservation rec?
Well, those particular changes weren't part of the dispute resolution process because they weren't part of the issues we were allowed to raise, for one thing. And it is a process that now, once the document gets adopted, can now be amended. And the first community in, I think Coquitlam will be one of the first communities in with a proposed amendment to that. And I will go to Mr. McIntyre.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just to be absolutely clear on this, the City of Coquitlam's request around the conservation recreation area and the 2/3 and the clause and all that and the map designations, that's a motion that's been passed by council, but in effect it's sitting on hold because the city didn't accept the RGS. So it's sitting there on hold, and this is why I want to make sure next week that we reiterate that so it is very clear to Metro Vancouver. If the city takes that step, council supports that next week, our request for those changes would go in, both in the mapping designations, but also in some of the policy wording in that implementation chapter. Our request would be the same as other municipalities across the Lower Mainland that have made similar 11th hour mapping and text changes. My understanding, the way it was explained to me by Metro staff, is that they would accept that, they would recognize and respect it as being the case that it is, but they weren't about to go back and change the RGS now. This is after the public hearing, and so they would make note of that, they would treat it as such, and the next opportunity the RGS is open for amendment in the public hearing process, they'd bring forward sort of an omnibus, sort of house cleaning amendment that would make all those changes as requested by the member municipalities.
When is that, I guess my question to you is, when is that review likely to happen? Is this a sort of every 18-month type thing I heard talked about, or
No.
do we have to wait until the 5-year workshop?
It's upon application. It's like rezoning. It's upon application. Sorry, Mr. McIntyre.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Not a specific date that I'm aware of. I can check with Metro staff this week and see if I can get a better answer. The way it was explained to me is that they were anticipating within the next 2 years, and probably less, there would be this need for these related housekeeping changes to the RGS. So this would be happening as part of an omnibus sort of house cleaning amendment to the RGS within the next year or so. It may be part of a regional context statement process, but they would anticipate that happening quite a bit sooner than the 5-year review.
Wow. So the people of Westwood Golf Course have to wait for possibly up to 2 years before they find out?
Again, those lands would be recognized, well, certainly in our official community plan and zoning, they would be recognized by Metro as respecting that request of the City of Coquitlam. Again, Your Worship, let me check with Metro staff and find out if there's a more specific timeline for this housekeeping amendment to the RGS, and I'll have that information next Monday for Council.
If I could just give, if I could just give some assurance, through the process, the Metro staff indicated that they would support the wishes of the local council, full stop. And that a number of municipalities requested changes after the public hearing closed. Metro staff said, we will take care of that, period, full stop. You can trust us. Now, whether or not you trust them or not is your decision. We have gone through a lengthy process, and at the end of the day, there was a lot of publicity to the various submissions given and that kind of stuff. The staff unequivocally said they would support the wishes of the local council in that regard, so I don't think you have to worry.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Any other questions? Third and final time, any other questions? Seeing none. Thank you very much all. Have a good evening.